Hello and welcome to Making It Manufacturing Spotlight Series. We are coming to the end of the journey, but we've saved the best for last. I am joined by Strategic Projects Director Alison Clayton from Symbiosis. Alison, how are you today?
Fabulous, thank you.
Good
Thank
to
you.
hear.
Thanks for inviting me along.
Oh, it's an absolute
Despite the
pleasure.
fact I made you walk down 20 flights of stairs yesterday to get out of the building.
Yes, for everyone out there was a big queue for the lift, and Alison put me to shame and decided to sprint down the stairs while I was humbling down. Alison, when you look back on your career so far, was there a moment when you realised you wanted to kind of move beyond purely scientific roles and into a more broader leadership and strategic position?
Yep, so I know we touch on this later on, but I did a degree and a PhD in pharmacology at Glasgow University. That was started in 1980. And did 7 years postdoctoral research work, and then moved to a pharmaceutical company in Edinburgh, which is a company called Syntex Pharmaceuticals. It doesn't exist anymore. It was bought by Roche, and I went in there as a scientist, and within a month we were bought by Roche and then sold to Quintiles.
Okay.
Quintiles at that point was a large CRO, and we had to pivot and change our business model from being a pharmaceutical company to being a contract testing organisation. That was a completely different change in mindset, and it took me out of the laboratory because I became a study director, and I was more involved in looking after projects, interacting with customers. I really liked the strategic aspect of it.
Yeah.
I liked the customer interaction, and I liked the fact that things were different every day.
Yeah.
And we did a broad range of testing, which was really good. And at that point, I thought, I want to come out the lab now, because I had done research and I did 7 years postdoc, and I thought this is an ideal opportunity for me to come out the lab and do something different.
Amazing. And how do you feel like that's helped you shape in the way you lead today?
I always like to understand what my team are doing. So either by having had the hands-on experience or knowing enough to be able to be helpful. I'm not a hands-off person.
No.
I like to be in control but not controlling. So I think having had a really strong scientific background has helped me all throughout my career. I've gone from basically basic drug discovery through preclinical testing into clinical trials, then into commercial testing, and now into manufacturing. So I've really been involved in the whole kind of drug development process, and I've been learning all along. And I think, you never stop learning.
Yeah, no.
When you stop learning, that's when it's time to stop.
Yeah, because I think everyone knows in this industry, it's not plain sailing, it's not straightforward. There's a lot of bumps in the way.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular, maybe risks or key decisions you made that kind of shaped your pathway to today?
I don't think anything specifically. I think I've been in either a fortunate or an unfortunate situation. So I mentioned to you there, I started at Syntex, it got bought by Roche. Then it got sold to Quintiles, and then it was actually bought over by a company called ARTO. So they bought the early development laboratory services from Quintiles in 2005. So I worked in the same facility, did slightly different jobs, but worked for 4 different companies. And then you had to adapt and change. And the ARTO organisation, it was managed by basically a funded company, so it was investment company. So they had a different viewpoint on what you were there to do, which was to make money, clearly. But I was always there to actually, help support making safe medicines for patients. That was my driver. So actually, trying to marry those two things up can be quite a challenge, particularly in the preclinical arena.
You've built a very successful career in what has traditionally been quite a technical and male-dominated part of the industry.
Yeah.
What has the journey been like for you personally?
Yeah, so I basically haven't actually felt that my gender has had any impact on my my progress. I'm naturally an inquisitive person, and I like learning, and you know, I've worked with a lot of difficult male managers and female managers. I use these as learning opportunities to understand how to manage myself. I always do my homework. Listen to people. I'm not the kind of person that, and I think in this industry you can get people who want to give the impression they know more than they actually do. And I'm not that kind of person. I know I'm consciously incompetent. That's what I always say. You know, I like to understand things. I'll ask questions, and I think that's key. Is just don't put yourself in a situation where you feel you have to say something and you don't really understand what you're talking about.
So you just touched a little bit about your own experience. What advice would you give to women who are looking to build long-term careers and eventually move into, you know, more senior leadership roles within life sciences?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult one to kind of pin down and give a sort of specific answer. You know, I think I never had a career plan. I never set out to do something. I always managed to look at ways of getting myself into positions where I could see where I could add value and develop myself, and do it in a controlled way. Not don't want to get promoted too quickly, don't want to push myself ahead too quickly. But sometimes you get thrown into positions that that basically you weren't you didn't know, and you just got to take opportunities. So I think it's also then about you know, being fair and balanced with people. So it's really always about thinking about the team, listening to them, understanding what they're doing, and women, you know, have the added challenge of having children. I've been blessed with 3 boys and a wonderful husband that has put up with me through all that time. So it is difficult. It's a balancing act, but I mean, I've always been passionate about what I do, and I think if you are passionate about what you do, you find ways to make it work.
So we're just going to dive into scaling capability, okay? So CDMOs today are under huge amounts of pressure to scale quickly, but while maintaining extremely high quality standards. In your experience, where do you potentially feel that organisations might get the balance wrong?
So I think if they scale too quickly and you're trying to sell capacity that you don't have, or it can be very attractive to take on a project that's maybe not quite in your sweet spot, but you could try and make it fit, and you could end up having some challenges with that. Equally, if you get into partnership with a company and they're prepared to work with you to do the R&D work and do the baseline work, you could end up with a really strong partnership for doing something that you weren't capable of doing before. And
like you said, it was it's about getting the right partnership in order to source that. How damaging can it be if you over deliver on what you've promised?
Or you under deliver
on what you promised.
Over promising and under delivering is actually a bit of a classic in contract testing, in contract manufacturing. I think you always think you can do more than you actually can, and I think you always have to make sure you build in contingency for things that go wrong, materials that don't arrive. You rely on a fairly complex supply chain, and if anyone in that supply chain falls over, it can have an impact on your deliverable outside of your control. So it's about, you know, those partnerships are. It's critical that you're open and honest, and you understand where your potential pinch points are and potential challenges.
Yeah, and as companies grow, how do you ensure quality and scientific capabilities remain central to the organisation?
Yep. So, in the pharmaceutical industry, you know, we're governed by regulations, GLP, GMP, GCP. So I think as long as you maintain your regulatory structure and have the right people with the right background in that, it's absolutely crucial.
So we're just going to dive a little bit into Symbiosis.
Yep.
And so if you could just begin for our listeners who might not have heard of Symbiosis, whereabouts do you guys stand in the current CDMO landscape?
Yep. So Symbiosis are, I would say, a relatively small player. We're based in Scotland. We were established 2011, 2012. We still have the same CEO, Colin Mackay, passionate about having a company that's based in Scotland, employs Scottish people. So we are a sterile manufacturer, small scale, mainly clinical, into small scale commercial.
Yeah. And in terms of where the market's heading at the moment, do you feel the sterile manufacturing capabilities is really starting to increase?
Yes. So just being at the conference this week, we're hearing from potential clients and clients that we work with that the need for sterile manufacturing is definitely increasing. Lyophilization capabilities, which we have, is also being asked for a lot from our clients at this meeting.
So I like the fact that, you're a Scottish company. You really want to embed that Scottish culture as well.
Yeah.
Because it's essential to the heartbeat of the company.
Yeah.
So the CDMO market at the moment is very competitive.
Yeah.
Where do you feel Symbiosis potentially differentiates themselves from other companies?
So we do biologics testing. I think we've got a really good reputation in the market. So we've got a proven capability.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for a long time. We know what we're doing. We've got really experienced people. We've also got experience with the complex biologics that people are developing. These are curative medicines and therapies, and we've got a lot of experience in that area as well. So I think that's, in some ways, it differentiates us. Also, with us being small, we've got quite a lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
So we can work closely with customers, and especially if customers have tight timelines, we can be flexible in terms of our schedules and help them meet their crucial timelines for their drug product.
And how important is that flexibility in kind of maintaining these customers and then growing new clients as well?
I think it is. I think that, there are big companies out there that manufacture hundreds of thousands of vials. We're in the tens of thousands, so it's much smaller. And I think customers do definitely appreciate the fact that there's that flexibility is there. Yeah.
And do you feel like you're able to build more personable partnerships, and they become the number one priority, where potentially some bigger companies, maybe you're just a needle in a haystack sometimes?
Yeah. I think that's the case. That said, repeat business is really important as well. So you can't always be chasing new business. So building strong relationships with customers that have got a strong pipeline is definitely something that Symbiosis focus on.
And then just while we get more towards the end and looking ahead for Symbiosis, what does the future kind of hold? What does the next 5 years look like for you guys?
So I think it's really exciting because the new medicines that are coming out there. So Symbiosis are involved with companies that are developing cutting edge medicines.
Yeah.
So that's really, when I went to university in 1980, it was all small molecules. So now you've got all these biologics out there. These are curative for patients. They're life-changing for them. It's not about taking a tablet every day or going to get an injection. And for me, in that time frame that I've been in pharmacology, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
And actually, to be part of a company like Symbiosis that is manufacturing them and then sending them out into the hospitals, into the clinics for patients to take them is for me, it's the pinnacle of my career, I would say. It's
amazing.
fabulous. It's fabulous. Because when you're in the lab and you're working on projects, you don't see it, you're far away from that end point. And now to have come through my whole career and now be at that end point, now to be part of a world-class company who are delivering medicine straight to the patient. It's just fantastic. It's great.
You've kind of answered my last question in that, which is amazing. So, you mentioned you went to university in 1980. Tons of years of experience, and it's amazing. And there's so much wisdom there. And you've worked at different organisations in different roles. So, what excites you most today about the growth and future of Symbiosis?
I think just what I've said there. I think just the types of products that we can develop. I think as well, just to go back to being a Scottish company and being able to offer people that go to university in Scotland, a really meaningful career. People in all areas of our organisation understand that we are there because we are delivering life-saving medications to patients, and I think that's a really noble profession to be in, and it feels good that I've been able to be part of that for my career, and to be able to be part of an organisation that is continuing to deliver that for the next generation of scientists and people that are engaged in that.
Thank you so much for coming
Pleasure.
on, Alison. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Good, pleasure.